So today we are going to be making our own custom blog post template using Elementor's container widget. We are going to be using Elementor Pro in this video. If you're looking for a video on how to achieve the same results using free plugins, I am going to be showing in a separate video on how to achieve that. But for now, let's get started. One thing before we start making our template, do remember to have a couple of posts on your website already, even if it's just one example post, because when you're constructing the template, it's nice to actually have that being fed with live data from your website. So do include the title, some text, some pictures, and also put in a featured image. Put in as much as you can into at least one example article. So when you're building out a template, you can see exactly how that post is going to look like on the main website. Okay, so the design of this template, we're going to keep it very basic for beginners. Here's a title and the metadata, and here's the featured image to our blog post. Underneath the blog post, you can see here's the main article. We have the previous and next widget over here working pretty well. And we have 3 different related articles underneath that the client can go and click on your website. Okay, so here in the back end of our WordPress website, we're going to be going into templates and we're going to go into the theme builder. Here in the theme builder, what we're looking for is single post on the left hand side here. If we click on that, you can see that there's no templates here currently. So in order to add a template, on the top right, we're going to click add new. Now that the Elementor builder is loaded, you can see that the library has popped up and it shows you a whole bunch of different options you can choose that are pre-built already in Elementor. But in this video, we're not going to be using these, we're going to be making ours from scratch. So I'm just going to close this window. So in the builder, you can see this is the area we're going to be making our post in. This bottom piece is my footer to my website. So you don't have to worry about this looking a little bit different to yours. The first thing we're going to add is our first container. So we're going to click on this plus sign. And I'm going to choose this main container here that's got the down arrow here because I'm going to stack everything vertically. Now we have our first container. You can see that all the settings are here on the left hand side. Now normally on main pages of a website, I do like having everything full width, but on posts I actually lean towards more of a box feel because I don't really want the writing all the way to the edges of the screen. So this isn't really a thing on mobile, this is more of a desktop thing. On mobile the box is quite wide and it almost goes to the edges anyway, so you don't have to worry about that on mobile. So now we have a container, we're going to start adding all the components that make up a blog post. So on the 9-dot icon, if I click on that, you'll see that in the singles tab, here's a whole bunch of different widgets that we can use for our post. The first thing that I'm going to be adding is actually going to be a spacer so that when I put in the titles and that, it's not on the very top edge of the screen. So I'm going to scroll down to basic and I'm going to see the space. I'm going to click and drag that to the container. I'm going to let go. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the 9-dot icon again. I'm going to look for the post title. I'm going to click and drag that across. I'm going to put that underneath the space and I'm going to let go. Now that my title's here, you can see that my heading here is already being displayed with one of my posts I have already. That's pretty cool so that you can see how your post is shaping up live on your website. For the settings of the title, what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to change alignment to center. And then I'm going to be clicking on typography. I'm going to make this just a little bit smaller because as you can see, it's going on 2 lines and I don't really want that. So I think a 30 pixel for the heading is actually pretty good. Now that I'm happy with the style of my heading, I'm going to go ahead and add another spacer to this container. Now I do have the option of clicking on this 9-dot icon. I can scroll to basic. I can find the spacer widget. I can click and drag that underneath the title. I can let go over there. Or what I can do is if I delete this one quickly, I can go to this top spacer here. I can right click. I can say duplicate. And I can click the second one over there underneath the title and I can let go of that. So you do have the 2 options there to choose from. So the next widget I'm going to be using in my template is going to be the post info. This is the widget where it displays the date and who was the author of this post. So I'm going to click and drag this widget. I'm going to put it underneath the title but above the other spacer that I had put in there. I'm going to let go. So now you can see on the left hand side there's a whole bunch of different settings of what you can choose to display for this post. So the time and the comments to this widget I don't want. You do have the option of customizing this to display whatever you want as the info to this post. So you can click on add item and here's a whole bunch of different things that you can select for this widget. But in this video I don't actually want anything else. I actually want to take out the comments and I also want to take out the time. So now that I'm happy with what I have displayed here, I'm going to go into style. I'm going to say that this is center aligned underneath the title. For the icon settings, I want the color to be black and I'm happy with the sizing here. You do have the option to make it bigger or smaller depending on your design. Then the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to click on text and here I can actually select the color. I'm going to say that this is a black as well. I'm happy with the typography because I don't really want it too big. Okay, so now that I'm finished with this widget, it's time to add our main content. I'm going to click on this 9-dot icon. So here in the widgets menu, the next thing I'm going to add is the featured image. I'm going to click and drag that across. I'm going to put it underneath the spacer. I'm going to let go. And here's the image to this post. I am actually happy with how this design is. You do have the option of actually stylizing a little bit if you want. So for example, let's click on style. You can see there's a whole bunch of different options here. A nice little feature just to make it a little bit more professional, depending on the design of your website of course, is you can actually put a little bit of a border radius. Just so it has that little rounded corners here on the edges of this image. But for me in this template design, I actually don't want anything, so I'm just going to remove it. And now I'm going to click on a 9-dot icon. I'm going to add another spacer. I'm going to click and drag this underneath the image. I'm going to let go over there. I'm going to click on a 9-dot icon again, and I'm going to bring the post content. Now this is going to be the main article to your post. So I'm going to click on this post content widget. I'm going to drag it across. I'm going to make sure it's underneath that other space I just added. I'm going to let go. You can see that here is a text content to this post over here. I am happy with how it's actually looking over here, so I'm actually not going to change anything to this. Next thing I want is another spacer just to make everything nicely spaced out. Click on a 9-dot icon, go down to basic, click on spacer, drag that across, and then let go. Now as a personal thing, I don't really like having post comments. You do have the option here in the widgets for your design, but again, that's just a personal preference. The next thing I am going to do is going to be post navigation. I'm going to click and drag that. I'm going to put that underneath the spacer. I'm going to let go. Here in the settings of this widget, you do have the option of changing the actual labels to the previous and the next. I'm happy with those wording, but you do have the option there just in case you want to change it. You can change the arrows if you want as well, from angle to any other type. I'm personally happy with the angle, so I'm going to leave that alone. And I'm happy with all the other settings here. So now I'm going to go over to style, and I'm going to start customizing the look of this to match the rest of this post. And for this label itself, I'm happy with this color here, but I am going to change it to uppercase. So to do that, I click on the typography button, and under transform, I'm going to say uppercase, just to make sure that it stays uppercase there. The other way is to change the label itself in the content here, and you can just type it in uppercase. So now I'm going to head over to title, and I'm going to change the color over here because this gray is just too light. So I'm just going to make it a little bit darker. I'm going to click on the color here. I'm just going to drag it darker until it looks fine there, and I'm happy with that color there, so I'm going to go out of this menu. For the typography though, I do want this a little bit smaller. I think about an 18 should work. Now obviously my titles are very long, so you can see it actually does a little bit of a dots. Most people's titles aren't that long, so you don't have to worry about that if that actually does bug you. And then the final thing I'm going to concentrate over here is the arrow. I'm going to make this a much darker color. I think black will just be fine over there. Okay, so now that we have this widget done, it's time to add yet another spacer. So I'm just going to go to this one over here. I'm going to right click. I'm going to say duplicate. I'm going to take the second one. I'm going to click and drag until it's underneath this widget. I'm going to let go. Now it's time to go back into the widgets menu, and to do that, it's going to be clicking on this 9-dot icon. Now here what I'm looking for is actually just a title widget. Now why I want that is I want it to display other posts that are in my website. Okay, so I'm going to scroll down till I find the heading widget. I'm going to click and drag that across until it's underneath the spacer. I'm going to let go. So here I'm going to change the title to related articles. I'm happy with everything else over here, but I'm going to go into style. I'm going to change it a little bit there. So here I'm going to keep the alignment on the left. I'm going to keep the color as is, but in the typography I do want this uppercase. So I'm going to click on the icon. Under transform, I'm going to say this is uppercase, and I'm pretty much happy with everything else here because the weight and the pixel size is all fine for this section. So now that I'm happy with this, it's time to add yet another spacer. I'm going to click and drag the second one I just duplicated. I'm going to put underneath the heading. I'm going to let go, and I'm going to add a post widget here now. So I'm going to click on the 9-dot icon. On the top here, I'm just going to say posts. Now within these options here, you can see that there's the loop builder that you can click and drag, but that's a bit more complicated, and I'm not going to cover that in this video, but I will be making a video to that pretty soon. But the one that I'm looking for right now is this post widget itself here. I'm going to click and drag this. I'm going to make sure it's underneath the spacer, and I'm going to let go. Now here's the post widget that we're going to be stylizing. If you scroll down, it seems like it's a whole bunch of posts, but I don't want a whole bunch of posts. I only just want 3 posts here. Let's start customizing this widget. So under the layout, I don't want this classic skin. I actually do want cards. I do like cards. So I'm going to click on skin, and here under cards, I'm going to click that. And now you can see it's displayed more as a card. It's slightly rounded edges, but it's still matching my theme, so that's fine. So as you can see, when it hovers, it does that whole shadow popping out look. And I'm a real big fan of that. So under columns, I'm happy with 3. Posts per page, I actually just want 3. I don't want anything underneath this. The show image, I'm going to say yes. The image resolution I'm happy with. Ratio and everything is fine. So the exit length I'm not really happy with. I'm going to take this down to about a 30. And I'm going to say apply to custom exit, because on my post I have a custom exit on each of my posts, so I do have custom ones. So I'm going to click on this, and then you can see the setting apply with this as well. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the metadata. So here I don't actually want any metadata here to these cards. So I'm just going to click on the X in front of these, and you see them being removed from the card itself. If you want to add any, you just click on this plus sign and you can select from all the different options that Elementor has for you. So that's pretty much everything I'm concerned about in the settings in this window. But I am going to go over to style now. I'm just going to customize this a little bit more. So I'm going to click on style. The row gaps I'm actually happy with. What I'm actually really looking for is actually the content here itself. So underneath the heading, I want to make this just a little bit smaller. I think a 24 here for this card is pretty much fine. And now these cards are looking pretty good. They align pretty well to the whole design of this template, and they also complement the design of the main website. And now the final thing that I'm going to add, you've guessed it, is another spacer. So I'm going to go into this top one over here. I'm going to right click, say duplicate, Click and drag that underneath these cards. I'm going to let go. So now I'm happy with the whole look of this template. The final thing we have to do is actually publish it. So when I click on publish, a new window pops up, and this is the display conditions for this. Now this is for our posts. So what we want to do is going to say add a condition. We do want this to be included. On all singular, we don't want all singular. We do want this to be on blog posts only, because you don't want this to affect any other pages that are not blog posts. So I'm going to click on all singular. I'm going to look down for posts. I'm going to click on that. And then we do have the option for all posts, so just certain posts. But in this tutorial, we're only going to keep it on all. Then we just have to click on save and close. And there we go. Our blog post template has been successfully published to our website. So let's go have a look at it in the front end. So here's our template in action. You can see it displaying one of my posts. And as I scroll down, you can see that everything we made is actually aligning properly to this post itself. So now if I go to the bottom here and I click on a different post, there's our template working again, just on a separate post. And there we go. We have successfully made our own custom blog post template using Elementor Pro. Now, this is a very basic type of template. You can stylize it any way you want and be very creative in how you position everything. If you have any suggestions or anything, just send a comment down below and let me see what I can do. Hope you liked this video. Do remember to like and subscribe, guys. That stuff makes a big difference to my channel. And I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.